Okay, welcome back. Today I'm going to focus on introducing Photoshop for the sake of editing images for web pages. I have a sampled image provided for you in the classroom, and all you need to do is go to the Google Classroom, to the Photoshop Intro assignment, and click on the following link while watching the video. So I'm going to obviously click on the link. It's going to bring me to a pre-selected PlayStation 4 image. This is the one that I want you to use. We're going to be cutting out the PlayStation 4 and controller from its background using Photoshop for the first time. If you've used Photoshop before and think you're an expert, I still want you to follow the video because there's some tips and tricks that I may do that you've not seen before. So first thing we're going to do is start Photoshop. And once Photoshop is running, you're going to be seeing what I see on my screen. At this point, you're going to go to your Google Classroom, to the link, and you're going to right click on this and you're just going to hit copy image. We're going to copy it. We're not saving it, we're copying link, we're not going to the page, we're just going to copy the image. You're going to go over to Photoshop and you're going to click File New. You're going to see this. Leave the numbers as stated here because this inherits the image size. So you're going to say OK. You're going to hit Edit, Paste, or Control V, and here's our image. So we're going to start by understanding how to zoom in and out. On the keyboard, if you hold Control, and while Control is being held down, you can push the plus button, and we could zoom in quite a bit. We can zoom in all the way down to the individual pixel layers at 3200%. So you can see the different variations of blue here. And obviously, as we zoom out, the pixel lines will go away, and you'll start to see the image itself. But knowing how to hit Control plus and Control minus is really important. Okay? Another thing you need to notice is over here on the right, we have a background layer and layer 1. We are going to delete background layer. So you're going to click it, turn it blue, and then down here on the bottom right, you're going to click the trash can. You're going to say yes. And now, just to show you, if you want to do this, it's fine. You're going to click the rectangle marquee tool. I'm just going to click and drag a rectangle, and on the keyboard above the arrow keys there is a delete key. If you press delete, you will see a checker pattern. That is the surface behind the image, and the checkers indicate that there's nothing there. So whenever you see checkers, that means that there's nothing there. No image, there'll be a transparent spot if we save this a certain way, and so forth. Let's deselect this. Control D deselects. Now over here on the right, there's an eyeball. If you click the eyeball, it goes away, and you can reveal what's behind the image, which is nothing. So you can turn layers on. For this lesson, we're only going to do one layer, and we're going to work on editing the image so we can extract just the PS4 image. I like to use the polygonal lasso tool. When you click the polygonal lasso tool, you will see that there's a feather setting up here. Feather just makes the edge not as sharp, and it actually compensates for some of our imperfections. So what I like to do is set this to a 2 or 3 pixel feather. So set it to 3 because this image is kind of big. And if you look at the lasso cursor on the screen, you're going to see that the lasso cursor has it looks like a knot at the end with a little tip sticking out. The tip itself is the tip of the cursor. If this throws you off, you can press cap lock and you'll end up with a plus. That might be a little bit easier for you to figure out where the end of it is. I personally like this. So let's begin. So with the lasso tool on, with the background layer deleted, and with layer 1 active, we're going to start with this nice straight line. So let's start here. We're going to put the tip of the lasso tool right here. My on-screen recorder my on-screen recorder and my actual visual screen that I'm using doesn't match up. So if you look at my screen right now, I actually have the lasso tool perfectly positioned on the top corner of Photoshop. You can't see that because my screen recorder, for some reason, has modified my view. I'm not sure how to fix this yet, but you'll see the intent. So I'm going to click. As you can see, I think my cursor is just bigger. So let's use caps lock and see. Is that right where it's supposed to be? Nope. For whatever reason, my cursor is visibly larger than it should be. But it will actually end up in the right spots. So I'm going to click here. As you can see, it's perfect. I'm going to hit Control plus now and zoom in. Come down here and click. And then click. If you make a mistake like I just did on purpose, kind of clicked a whole bunch of times over here, I don't want to do that. The delete key will delete the last point that you clicked. So you can undo a mistake if you don't like the way it looks. This is actually a curved surface, so I'm going to hit Control plus and kind of zoom in a little bit. Kind of click my way around in smaller points. You can only create straight lines, but if you create a sequence of small straight lines, you'll be able to create a nice curve. Now there's some imperfection here, but honestly the feather is going to take that out, and we are at high magnification. I'm going to scroll down. I'm just moving my mouse and pushing. I'm just like putting it out of the screen. It's auto scrolling for me. Now I'm going to hit Control plus. Continue. I'm going to ignore the reflection. Remember, this image has a reflection. We're going to cut this out. Now I'm going to hit Control minus so I can see where I'm going. This is a straight line, so there's no need to be that zoomed in. I chose this console because it has a lot of straight edges and it's a good way to introduce this process. So at this point, I have a lot of pre-selected areas at risk of being messed up if I were to accidentally double click, and then I'll have to start the process all over again. So I'm going to just do a series of clicks around and back over to my original starting point. You're going to see a little circle pop up when I get close to the connecting point of the first line. When I click it, now I have a, they call those marching ants, but that is my selection. If I press delete, you'll see the checkers. I like to press delete twice when I use a feather. I'm going to press it delete one more time. And now I'm going to press Control D, and now I repeat the process. So ignore all of this other stuff over here. We're just going to do this, and I think the curves of the controller will be the most challenging part of this edit. So we're going to hit Control plus. We're going to scroll over, and we're going to start here. Now remember, my cursor doesn't line up on the screen when I'm recording for some reason, so I'm right on the edges. You can see my selections after the fact and see how accurate they really are. And get into here. And at this point, I am out of view. So I'm going to hit Control plus, and I'm going to just push my mouse up a little bit and continue. This part's hard. So we're going to zoom in quite a bit. Now you're going to see imperfections here, but remember, we are zoomed in so far that when we zoom out, the imperfections won't be there. So I'm just kind of creating a small length, seeing if I can create a tangent relationship where it just barely touches the curve. And I repeat. I can stretch out and come back, stretch out, come back to see where it looks like a good logical spot. Now this is definitely going to come with experience and time. I may be making this look easy. There are other ways to do this, however, this gives you the most control. And we can clean up edges and do all kinds of things later. But I'm just trying to get you to practice selecting and deselecting areas for the purpose of trimming your images to make them look good for websites. because it's image, colors, and styles that make the site look good. So at this point, I don't want to keep going because I could make a mistake and connect accidentally back to my start point and have to redo this. I'm not going to simulate that. I'm going to zoom out, hit Control minus, and I'm just going to bump out, bump over. Remember where I started, so I'm going to come back down. Just pushing my mouse out of the screen, it'll auto scroll. Be patient. If you're not patient, this will be 10 times harder. Now we're going to go over to here. I'm going to look for that circle. Click. Press delete twice. 1, 2. Control D. You can see how the edge is soft. That's the feather. If I zoom in, you can see how it's semi-transparent on the edge. That's the feather, and believe it or not, that takes a lot of imperfections away, especially when you zoom out to like this level, right? You can't see it, it looks crisp. So we're going to continue this process. The scroll wheel lets you also scroll up and down. If the scroll works too slow, I think you can hold shift and it will snap to really fast points. However, the snaps usually are too big to be useful. Alright, now I'm going to zoom in. There's a little imperfection here due to the feather. I'm just going to ignore that and go straight. The second delete operation we do here with the feather will take care of that. At least it should. And for all intents and purposes, this is just training, so this is not going to get printed in a magazine. And that's probably the only time where you will actually see some of these imperfections. Web graphics are so low resolution, you don't see them. So I kind of lost track. I'm not sure. I think this is the PlayStation 4. I'm going to zoom out, Control minus, and just take a look. And it looks like it is, and I'm at the straight line. I'm just going to come over here and just kind of go past that and click. Go back to that initial point. Find that circle. And delete, delete. Control D. Control minus, minus, Control minus. As you can see, the PlayStation has been cut out. Now we need to get rid of all the other stuff. So I like to use the rectangular marquee and just click and drag a rectangle. Press delete. Make sure over here this is the one that's selected. Click, delete, click and drag, delete, delete. So you could start to chunk this out. Delete, delete, delete. Hopefully you can see the method behind my madness at this point. One thing I do like to do to check, I'm also going to press V really quick. I'll make my point in a second. Now you can drag it around, right? V is in Victor. It's this top tool here. I'm going to make a second layer down here by the trash can. When I click it, layer 2 is there. We're going to click this color palette, and your color finder will show up. You're going to choose the bottom left corner, just black, or RGB000. We'll talk about these values another day. Say OK. With the paint bucket tool, it'll be here. If you hold it down, you can get gradient. So if you don't see it, it's here, and you hold it down, you'll get paint bucket. Just click. It turns black. Everything's gone. But if you can see, layer 1 is under layer 2. So if you drag layer 2 down below, you can see your PlayStation 4. You can click the black background. And I can see that there are no imperfections. I didn't leave any extra pieces kicking around. And that's why the black background is actually put there temporarily. Okay? We're going to delete the black background, get rid of it, and just leave it the way it is. Now we're going to crop this because this is wider than we need. So we're going to press either C on the keyboard, or if you press this button here, you can click and drag a box. Now if you can't click and drag a box, make sure up here all the values are cleared out. Just click clear. That's the one thing that will prevent you from doing this. So I'm going to bring my crop tool to snap to the edges, and it will snap because it knows where the edge of it. And this is just making sure that we can make our image size the most efficient in terms of what we need it to see. We don't want any extra white space if possible. We're going to press enter. And at this point, we're going to save this in two ways. First, and you're going to, of course, save this in your G drive. So you're going to do save as. We're going to save it as a PSD and just call it a PS4. Okay? I'm saving mine on the desktop, but please save in your G drive the way we've talked in class. PS4, save, PSD. PSD is short for Photoshop Document, and obviously PlayStation 4 is the PS4. Now we're going to save this for a web or device, which is here. Control-Alt-Shift-S. Or if you click Save for Web and Devices, a dialog box will pop up. Give it a second. This is the big image, so it may take a while. Here's how big the picture is. Here's the percentage. So in terms of pixels, we're going to make this more web appropriate. We're going to make this 300 pixels wide, and we're going to let the height automatically scale, because this is linked and it's going to preserve the ratio of how wide it is to how tall it is. If you press Tab, T-A-B, Tab right above caps lock, it will register those values and show you what the image edit will look like. We're going to choose PNG24. PNG24 is going to preserve the transparencies, and on our website, the areas where my hand is showing will be invisible or transparent. So we're going to hit save, and we're going to call this PS4, and you're not going to add an extension. Just leave it as a PS4. Because we chose PNG, it's going to be called PS4.png. Hit save. With that being done, that concludes this lesson, and I'm going to ask that you turn in the PS4 PNG that you edited and the image size of the PNG. I'm going to open that to show you. The image size of the PNG edited will look like what you see on the screen, and it will be in the range of 300 by 213. It may be off by a couple pixels here or there because the way I edited is going to be not exact to the way you edit. Alright, that concludes this lesson. Have a great day.